Thank you all for coming tonight, and we will start right off with the superintendent's report. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you very much. Sorry I rushed in at the last minute there. Wasn't able to say hello to everybody, so welcome to tonight. Thank you very much for coming. We have a few presentations, so actually I'm going to truncate my report and defer very quickly to getting into those presentations, barring one thing, though. The Board of Education is going to be taking action on some positions tonight. One of those positions is for the board to consider and act on the appointment of a Director of Special Education. So I'm just planting a seed with the Board of Education. The next meeting, assuming that that goes swimmingly tonight, I will ask the Board of Education to adopt a resolution and a memorandum of understanding with the Marlboro Educators, the MEAA, Marlboro Educators Administrators Association, to take that position into that association. So that's an item that we've discussed, and that would be at the next meeting. So with that, our next meeting on the 21st, we're going to be having a presentation by Fred Callow, our food service director, and he's going to give us a 360 view of our food service program. And also, Joanne is going to be addressing the share table status. So we've done some research on it. We absolutely would like to move forward with creating that experience. There are some barriers in that process, so Fred is researching it as far as the health department in Ulster County. And he'll have a report and an information path or no path for us at the next meeting. So thank you very much for bringing it up.
It was, I have to be honest, it was not me. I mean, I had saw it again on Facebook and other people have contacted me. But last year, I believe, Robin, one of the Girl Scouts contacted you. So I have to give credit where credit is due because they're the ones that first brought it to us about doing a project for a share table. So I have to give credit to the Girl Scouts. And like I said, I brought it back. But I think it is a wonderful idea for our students.
Right. It's preliminary. Thank you very much, Girl Scouts and Robin. But it's preliminary right now. Is still an idea. Fred is finalizing on his research as to whether we can do it or not. And we'll know at the meeting on the 21st.
No new plus doesn't say B plus. It'd be a plus for our students.
Okay. And with that, I have nothing else to report.
Okay. For Ulster BOCES, we were up. All the districts did a presentation on what they've accomplished last year. We talked about the building project. Mr. Brooks, Mrs. Brooks, myself, we're all there. It was nice to hear what some of the other districts are doing. It was a good kickoff to where we're going. The next meeting's not till January, and we'll really be getting into our legislative session, meeting where the legislators will all be out and discussing what they have going on and us giving our opinions on the things they should be working for on behalf of the districts for the Ulster. The only other thing I'll tap off that, because I don't have a separate report for, the steering committee for the possible sports facility that BOCES is looking to put in out in Goshen, met again, redefined some scope, and hopefully at the December meeting, we'll start to see some idea of their numbers and their thought process of really what they can build on the Arden Hill campus and what the, what's feasible, what's not feasible, and some real budget numbers, because that's something that every resident of the component districts of Orange Ulster BOCES would be voting on somewhere in the future if it makes it through the steering committee, then the Orange Ulster board, and then it'll go to the taxpayers. So, Karen, you want to do yours?
Yep, OXPA, the Orange County School Board Association met yesterday. We did a visit to the Arden Center, and we looked at 5 areas at the Arden Center. The first was dental careers and emergency medical services. The dental careers is a pretty new program for dental assistant. You can do a 1-year or 2-year. If you go 2-year, you can sit for the New York State dental test because you have enough hours. And what's really I found amazing was that they have a dentist there on Fridays, so they can actually work inside, the students can actually work inside mouths with the dentist there. EMS right now is only AM. Next year it's going to be AM and PM. They pair that with the fire science program, and they're also looking at the possibility of doing a nighttime program in the future for adults as well to get their EMS certification. Special education, when we went and viewed that one in the Arden Center, they have what's called a newcomer program, adult day treatment program, and restart. The newcomer was what was really interesting. That's a brand new program. It's for E&L students. It basically functions in 8 weeks, but the kids are there for the entire year. It's for new service for basically E&L students that are coming in from high school or middle school, and they have no family, or they basically are couch surfing from one couch to another, and they have very limited entering English language skills. So they have 11 students in the program right now. They're supposed to be up to 15. Key school districts that are taking part in that are Middletown, Goshen, Washingtonville, Monroe, Woodbury. They also did a print shop review for us. They have some really great things. I have to tell you, most people know I also own a business, and the stuff that I saw that came out of that print shop was better than some of the stuff I buy from print shops online. And they do window clings now. Window cling, and I was just, my mind went wild with all the things that we as a school district could do with window clings, and you could do like big ones on the front. So anyway, they do now outside latex-based banners, which they have outside of their Career and Tech Center. We have this coming up in about another year. They do these great big ribbons for ribbon cutting ceremonies, and now they have 12 giant pairs of red scissors for the ribbon cutting ceremonies. They lend out, so we have that. I have that in the back of our mind for that. The other thing that came across my mind is the budget brochures. Everybody seems to use their service except us for the budget brochures. Middletown went last year, and they gave me 2 to look at for us, and I thought they were beautifully done. The one is Middletown, and they just started using it last year, and then Monroe Woodbury. And I was just thinking, since maybe we are going to a new system, that this might make the process even a little bit easier. So I wanted to give those to your office. We also looked at an infographic. Middletown did this, and house sells and everything. This is an infographic that Middletown made up for their school districts, to go out to realtors to help sell houses in the area based on the school program. Very Pearl River-ish and Malcolm Baldrige Award-ish, but it's something that's coming into the area, and other school districts are doing this as well, so I thought we might want to look at that. Then they did instructional services, and they talked about the Mandarin program. They have 240 kids in their Mandarin program. Marlboro, we are new to this year, and they were telling us how excited they are and how wonderful our kids are doing in the program. They're also doing, working with SCDN, which is a statewide network of all the BOCES assistant superintendents, and they're looking at all the new standards. So for example, with the new art standards, they're doing 3 lessons that cover all the standards. State Ed is there, and what they're doing is once those 3 lessons are done, they're sharing them with all the BOCES throughout the state, 52 I believe there is, and then they're sharing them with all their component districts, which will make that open to us as well. So that's really nice to know. Records management, we went over and looked at that. It was nice, they pointed us out as like a model district because we're part of that service, and they said we're on a maintenance schedule, which is really great because you only come in so often. And then finally, at that meeting, they talked about the December 4th meeting. They're going to be showing the movie Resilience, the Biology of Stress, and the Science of Hope. It's about basically poverty and how it's impacting our education. And they have 3 speakers. They have Frank Sheboy, Dr. Frank Sheboy, who's the superintendent of Highland Falls Central School District. Julka von Stalkenberg, she's from the Cornell, I believe, Cooperative Extension. And then Nick Pataglione, who's the assistant superintendent for Port Jervis, and they're going to be talking about how this is impacting their schools as well. And they just asked, they invited me to extend this to our board and to the administration at Marlboro. So when I reply back for going to the next OXPA meeting, they'd like to know how many people in the district are coming. So if we could just get a head count for that.
Great,
Pretty
thank
much
you.
it. Oh, and the other thing they gave us was the legislative updates. So I'm gonna give that to you as well. And, all of their flyers. Great, and that's for them too.
We've got no student representatives report. They're, Madeline and Jimin are both involved with the fall production. A bad year for tomatoes, which is this weekend, so Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon. If you have some free time, you really should try and get out to one of the productions. Definitely not something you want to miss. Joanne, do you want to, being that they don't have a report, you want to give an update on the conference?
Sure. As always, it's always busy when we go to conference, but I'll give you some of the outlines that they talked through law. One of the law conference was the school safety and crisis management. So for this year, legal says when something does happen, it says, legal says wait until the facts are all in when you report it to the newspapers. PR is be the first with the story. Put out what you know. Working with the media being transparent. May I use our example? Apparently there was an incident up at our high school, and I have to say Mr. Lawler did do a wonderful job. He let the community know, he let the parents know that everything was where it should have been, and it nipped everything in the bud, I believe. I didn't hear anything back. I didn't see anything all over social media. So hats off to Mr. Lawler. He did a good job on that, and that's basically what they were talking about. The other one is, one of the new laws also is the data processing law. We're going into, we need a data protection officer. Do we have one? Protects our data?
I don't know if we have that official title, but this gentleman over here is responsible for it.
Yes, so we're actually reviewing the requirements of that law, and we understand that there's going to be some people named to some roles within and responsibilities for data security and protection. I, by and large, engage in those discussions along with Robin to talk about the protection of our network and the student data. So those are things I believe that in the next reorg meeting we'll have to name. And I know the law goes into effect in January as well, so.
Right, so we're basically also saying that we need to put a parents' bill of right that should be posted on our website.
We have a wonderful Parents' Bill of Rights on the website.
And we do have to have that before July 1st. And we have to watch dealing with the third vendors because of the new law with APP, new laws, and we also have to watch our HIPAA with that. The student immunization, that was also another big thing. Nothing really has changed with that other than they're allowing now doctors to fill out the form to waive it, but if the doctor does fill it out, you do have to have a medical issue, and the doctors will be held accountable and can lose their license if they falsify any records. Employee voting was leading up to 3 hours, but you have to give 2 days notice to the employer.
Anything other than the law conference?
The student's health was the student health issue with concussions. You do have to hand out packets now to the parents for concussions and semi-concussion blows and how it will affect them. Anything, Mark?
Any from the other seminars other than the law conference?
Yeah, I had some other things, but one of the things also was special ed, because this is something that I know that I've talked to in the past, to our special ed, for students that are more, I would say, of a life skills class. what they're saying, the declassified policy no longer is required, but referrals for students that are turning 18 years old now, for their annual review on their 18th, annual review programs that have to go into day halves, the residentials, but the CSE believes that requires adult services. You are to invite OMID, OPWDD, or SED to the board meetings, and you have to have the parents sign for consent to come in for those students, which I thought that was a positive thing because they're not, once they graduate at the age of 21, they're not sitting at home. Now we have to have these agencies come in to help provide services for after they graduate. They also talked about school board roles, that there's everybody is basically equal. No one can make a decision without the rest of the board. One of the classes I did take, I'll go to that. The other thing is they did talk about in the law conference was when we're doing negotiations now, because I guess Long Island is leading the way with that. They can't keep affording to pay teachers over $125,000, so they're trying to come up with other ways to negotiate things because the taxpayers down there can't keep paying the high taxes. So they're looking at different ways of negotiating. District goals, basically what the class I took, it says that we as a board should be sitting together once or twice to get the goals set. Then we let Mike know how we want it and to do like the data, the student achievement, supporting programs, college and career readiness, which we do. We do a lot of it, but we should be doing that also with Mike and giving him the lead, which we do. And Mike is very good about that. The other one was, I took this one, was accepting the LGBTQ students. That one was very touching and sad too, but it's very different because there are statistics out that say 33% of the LGBT students actually commit suicide because they're not accepted. 42% are homeless. 26% of the youth get kicked out of their homes because of it. So it was very sad, but also in one of the school districts, which what they'd like us to do is get the PTAs involved, the booster clubs involved, trying to make people more acceptable. Everybody is different, and we're all different. We're all not the same, so that's the same thing. And also, one of the other things was transgender bathrooms now, so when there are signs that go up, they have to have 3 signs on them. So this way everybody can use them. One of the biggest issues was one of the kids that is transgender wanted to play soccer as a female, and it went through all the states, through lawyers and everything else. It ended up that they could play, but the state still has not come up with a decision on any of that. On Section 9, or, I believe it's Section, I want to say, Frank, your bet is 10, 11? It's all the way upstate. It is an upstate school that had this.
Can I take an opportunity to advertise something?
Go ahead.
You referenced LGBTQ. We have a GSA at the high school, and on November 12th, which is Tuesday, at 5 o'clock at the high school, there's a incredible event that's going to be taking place. It's called Flip for Life, Flip for the number 4 Life, and it is a fundraising event sponsored by the GSA, and there's a strongman coming into the district, and he is going to be attempting to set a Guinness Book of World Records for flipping a 700-pound tire 129 times in 1 hour. The last time I spoke with him, he was up to 111. This gentleman is incredible, and if you have the time to come out for 5 minutes even, to watch him spend that hour flipping a 700-pound construction tire, all of the proceeds are going to the GSA with a focus on suicide prevention and awareness. So what you're saying, Joanne, is spot on, and our group of wonderful students at the high school sponsoring this are putting together this great program, and I'm pretty excited to see what Ben has to do as he flips this. I can't flip it once, so. So, opportunity to advertise a wonderful event. So thank you, Joanne. Appreciate that.
Well, I guess that is one thing that is important. We need to accept everybody the way they are. And I think we need to put that more out in our schools for that. And when there is a conflict, we need to have some kind of resolution that stops it before it even starts. So, and I have to tell you, we have been wonderful with that throughout the years. I can remember when we, like, maybe 20 years ago, it had started with a young man in our school district. So, for me, I think this is a good thing, and hopefully we'll be able to get community and PTAs involved.
Thank you.
That was, the last class I took, and this is for Debbie, actually, I thought it was going to be a little bit more than what it was. And it's something that we do here in Marlboro. Levittown Public School has a TV station, except they started with a green sheet, and they've moved into a studio now that they've all fundraised for and the community has given them. But what I liked about theirs is they actually have a crew. They have, oh my God, the video that they showed everybody, it's like if they're a real news station. They've got the kids involved with that, writing scripts. There is a whole thing on how they do field reporting. They actually take the kids out with their video camera, interview like the superintendent. They go interview things, and then they put it on their news show. So it's become a very big thing. So I did bring this back for the middle school to see if there's something in there, and they, you know, like they said, if they want, they can get in touch with them.
Great, thank you.
That was the fastest I did.
Okay, Mr. Mackey is going to do a presentation for the Lions Club in reference to the Lions Club Peace Poster Contest.
Mr. Milazzo, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm joined this evening by a very talented student artist, Miss Charlene Cans, and her mom and dad. My name is Ed Mackey, and I represent the Lions Club of Marlboro and Milton. And this year we held our 2020 International Peace Poster Contest. And the topic this year was Journey of Peace. And if you look behind the family, you'll see the posters that were entered into this year. When we went to judge the art, there were, I believe, 5 of us, Mr. Lyons, that were there. And it was not an easy decision, nor it was a quick decision. And the reason was the journey that these student artists took us on was magical. I encourage everybody to please take a moment and look at these during the course of the evening. They will be up for the rest of the night. They took us on a journey. We were able to see inside of their hearts and inside of their minds about what they feel journey of peace means to them. And this is a huge honor for me to be with Charlene, and our thanks to Mrs. Clinton for her continued support with this, and to Mr. Eckert for guiding these student artists on this path. It's truly remarkable what Charlene has done, and we wanted to recognize her this evening. She is the one who did win the contest for our school district. Her poster will now go on to regionals, and hopefully it'll go on to national, and hopefully it'll go on to global to be recognized as this year's peace poster. So we have a presentation for Charlene and her family, and may I read it, please? Lions International Peace Poster Contest of 2019-2020, the topic of Journey of Peace. Achievement award presented to Charlene for winning the local competition in the Lions International Peace Poster Contest, signed by our club president, Stephen Jennison, signed by our principal, Ms. Deborah Clinton, dated November 7th, 2019. Congratulations, this is for you. Along with that, we also... Along with that, I'm sure she may be even more interested in this piece. We do have a check for her for $50 to do whatever you want with it. There you go, my dear. I like chocolate sundaes, just saying. Briefly, may I also mention the other artists that were in this year. Miss Isabella DeSantis, Miss Ruby Brown, Mr. Amani Serda, did I do it right, Mrs. Clinton? Serda? Mr. Samuel Granholm, Mr. Jack Conroy, and Ms. Isabella DePrado. So congratulations and thank you. Thank you all. Yeah. We'll autograph, you know, you can autograph it for us later. What we're going to do is just more front, that's usually where we take the pictures. Sure. Which one do you think he'll use? He wants to do both the photo.
Thank you, Ed. Okay, now we're going to move on to a presentation by our auditor, Mr. Ray Prooster. And while he's getting set up, I'll give you an update. The girls' volleyball was playing this evening in a semifinal game. Unfortunately, they lost in a tight race in the fifth set. So
It's very easy.
but we just got that update.
I'll show you, it's
so.
very easy. Whoa.
Yeah, she can come up and help me.
No, it should be easy, but I just shut it down on you, unfortunately.
What I'm saying is that I can talk to them, so she can flip the pages where I go.
I got you.
That's what we just did.
Okay.
Got it. Okay, we're doing something different now. What we do is when we go to talk to the boards, in the past, we would just talk to the board with numbers and they would have information in front of them. We now do this, so the public can also see what I'm telling them by numbers and what's happening. So, number one. Okay, our audit report is based on two criteria. One, it could be what I call unmodified and modified. Unmodified means that when we got done with the audit and we reviewed the numbers, we were satisfied to the point that there was no misstatements in them. That's unmodified. Modified, there's 3 levels depending on the severity of what we see during the audit. Part of that, next page. Okay. The things that we look at are three major areas for the internal controls, which are the key things that make our audit. We do those three, and depending on the severity of them is what the report you get. In the back of your report, on the last 2 pages, you'll see our report and our answers, which we said right here, that you didn't have any major deficiencies, nor did you have any material weaknesses. It's all about your internal controls, and basically what we call a second pair of eyes looking on everything. So in both cases, you got a clean report and you had no major deficiencies. You had two comments, but they didn't deal with the internal controls whatsoever. Okay, what we're doing is, if you look at if you ever get a copy of the major report, the report is broken down in 3 areas. One is MD&A, which is a written part of the report. Then the first part of the major report, the first 4 pages, under our industry, we had to convert a school district financial statement to basically a business financial statement. And what they did was what they projected what it's going to cost the school district in the future for health insurance. And as you can see, at the end of June 30th, 2019, you $108 million in the hole, which is never going to be paid. But it's a number that sits on the financial statement. It's a one-shot deal, one-night deal, that's it. The pages that you look at in your major starts on page 5. Now we can flip. Okay, the reason why we look at this, I put up 3 things that happen. The district financial condition with reserves and fund balance remains solid. That's only as of June 30th. Going forward, I'm going to talk a bit about it later on, it's going to change. The cash position still remains strong, but you went down by $675,000 this past year. It's attributed to various things. And your assets to liabilities, if you bring up the page, you can see all these things, is a 3-to-1, which means that you're still in good standings for asset to liability. But going forward is where the district really has to look at it. We can just keep flipping here. Okay. Next page is what we have is called reserves. The district has established reserves. As you can see, there's various reserves up there. Some have zeros on them now. And some, if you look at like the insurance one a few years ago, when you had that conversion way back, you had $2.2 million insurance reserve to cover any costs. That came, that you didn't end up having any more liabilities. So what that did, the voters approved to put $1.5 million into a capital reserve project, which the voters approved last spring for, what's the $19 million project they approved, roughly? Okay, so that would be a starting seed money for the capital project that the voters don't have to pay on long-term debt for. The new one this past year is what they call teachers' retirement contributions. It was piggybacked on the ERS, which is the employee retirement. As you can see, you have $1.7 million in it, but the point you got to look at last year's to this year's. There was a big number was taken out of that. In order to, keep going. What happened was, in order for the district to meet what we call the tax reduction, that's appropriated fund balance, that's going to balance your budget. They had to use $4.6 million to balance the expenditure side of the budget. Technically, if you look at that, one of the things that we were talking about, if your budget spent every single dollar and you collect every single dollar, you would have had a $4.6 million loss. We were trying to explain that before. And what helped you, we can flip it now. What helped you was you ended up only with a $420,000 loss. You lost money on your revenue side. If you look on page 2 of yours. Here, flip it again. Yeah, these are numbers I got to show them. Okay, as you can see, the revenue side, you lost $729,000. Well, that is not as bad as you would have lost if during the year, a lot of capital projects were closed and $500,000 is moved from the capital projects as an interfund revenue to the general fund. If not, that would have been $500,000 more. And your loss would have been not 420, but over $900,000. So, as you can see, the revenue side's not working either. When you're building it, it's got to be looked at a different level. The areas, if you look at the packet I gave the board, if you look on the revenue page, it's about 4 pages back, 5 pages back. I think 47, 48. You find it? And can I get, as you can see, you have a lot of negatives. That means what you budgeted as revenue never came in. As you can see, there's several of them going down this whole list. So you got to be more careful as when you're budgeting, the revenue side is also as important as the expenditure side. Because the revenue side is what's going to support your expenditure budget. So if you stay right and flip the next page over on yours, page 49, what helped you, and this is one of the things we were just talking about a few minutes ago, you had $4 million, yeah, you can flip one more page there. $4,387,000 of unspent budget money. That's how you were able to buffer the loss of the 4.6 in the beginning. We were talking about appropriated funds. This helped you not lose that number, okay? The problem is going forward. As you see, your fund balance is shrinking. You have to, and what you can do is because you got $4.3 million in that, you're going to basically, I suggested that you start what we call zero budget. You start with zero. You don't have no budget. And you build it based on actual numbers that you know. And then you put in numbers that anticipate numbers, like your salaries, your benefits, your debt service. All those are actual numbers that you can schedule for. Because if you look on page 49, look at the numbers that are over $400,000. You've got excess money in several areas, okay? Those areas can be cut down and still have your educational programs still running and not affecting your educational program, but at the same time, when that goes down, your tax cap stays the same. What goes down is the appropriated fund balance to get to a point, what a reasonable point is roughly about 2% of your current budget. In your case, it'd be around $1.2 million. And right now, you're using 4.6. It's going to take time, but over the next few years, you got some debts coming off, so you can make up there. And then you got your capital project going where part of your plan was that you're going to use monies from the general fund, besides the capital, $1.5 million to balance. So you got to balance all those things in going forward. So the starting point, we met, the superintendent in the business office and I met, and he started we're starting to plan it. I gave him a 5-year look back already. Now we're going to look going 5-year forward with to see how things look, and that will determine how your budget's going to shape up over the next few years. But based on what I see here with the numbers, over the next 3-4 years, you're going to go to what I call the bottom, and then you start climbing back up again. And then you'll start refilling the reserves that you're going to have to use now to keep the educational program where it is now, and not affect the taxpayers, because the tax cap is it. You can tax at that level and not hurt the overall budget.
Well, and that keeps us, that's the trend that's been in the 10-year plan all along, is we knew we were going to bottom out and start after 2 more years, and then we'll start to go back.
Correct, because you have debts going off. This current, I think this upcoming year, you got one more. This 2021, one's off, and then the following year, you got a second one going off. So that's what I'm saying, you're going to be going down and you're going up. So one of the questions I can answer for John is yes, when you build a budget, you can look at those. And what you're going to be able to do is use a comparison of what you've had in prior years to this year and see what you can do about, adjusting the overall budget. Okay. Quick note, just so you understand, the school lunch fund took a loss of $119, but the general fund had supported for about $80,000. So in a sense, you lost $80,000 if you want to be self-sustaining. A lot of school districts can't because of the benefits that are involved, the salaries that are involved, doesn't cover the cost of operating a school lunch program. I only have 2 schools that are self-sustained. The rest are all funded by the general fund. Just so everybody knows that the general fund does support your school lunch program. That's how much the school lunch program is just as important as some of the other programs for the students, and the board recognizes that.
Hey, Ray, those 2 schools you just referred to, what do they do different that allows them to be self-sustainable?
What do? They have a lot of a la cartes. Also, they're very large schools, and they work, huh? School? Where?
Yeah, which
school?
districts?
It's in, Kingston is one of them. They're very large, and, they can cover the cost, but they've been having a huge fund balance that they built up, and they've been taking losses, but they still have, they're self-sustaining at this point. It's a program, here again, you look, but smaller schools, like in your size schools, it's hard because you can't, it's not like a normal restaurant. You can't charge what you want. There's set prices. How much you get back from the federal and state are all set numbers. If you're working with high salaries and high benefits, those two your cost of goods is where it belongs. It's in the personnel and the benefits is where the costs exceed.
Well, and that is definitely not our high salary category. When you look at the staff that assigned.
No, I'm just saying, those are the areas.
Yeah, it's,
But you just said Kingston was using one of their reserve funds, right? So
No,
that's,
they don't, Kingston doesn't.
Oh, I thought you just
Self-sustaining
said.
means they don't need to get money from the general fund at all.
okay.
That they generate enough money in order to, not ask the general fund for money. Okay, next one. Okay, this is a highlight for you guys. Currently, you have $1.7 million sitting in what they call a debt service fund. Here again, as capital projects that were used by borrowed money, this was what was left over. It sits in a fund until such time the board wants to bring it over to the general fund as a source of paying off the debts. That money is earmarked for certain bonds that you had that had excess money not spent. Or again, that's another source of a revenue going towards the general fund, and it can be divided up over years as long as it's used before the debt's paid off. But this one, you got a lot of years left on it. The 2 of them that you have a lot of years left on it are the only 2 that are in there. So you got years, 10 years about to go before that you can have to have it totally gone. So right now, like we're talking about the down point, this can be used to offset that a little bit. And then when you start going back up, you use that money that was basically set aside because you haven't touched it in years to offset your budget. Here again, that can be used to reduce that money, that appropriated fund balance we talked about. Portion can be used there in order to get that down also. So a combination of various things can help, lower the budget and lower that number all at the same time. Because the fear is going out farther, that number is going to get harder and harder to hit each year if your budget gets tighter and tighter. Because right now, like you mentioned, you're at 92%. And that makes it, you're able to cover that because of the $4 million you didn't spend. But if that drops at all, you go up to 94%, that's a $900,000 hit.
And these are planned reductions that we've known about for the foreseeable past and foreseeable future. Just for a stake in the ground perspective, last February when Pat Withrow did our 5-year projection, we were anticipating for the 18-19 school year a $1.5 million loss. We actualized a $420,000 loss. So there was
Right.
good news in that process. So this is a known issue. I don't want us to get into nail-biting worry here. That's not the issue. We know that our fund balance for the next year or two
Right.
has a planned reduction. We will update that again mid-year this year. I think it's a pat on the back to this group and as much fiscal management as we possibly can, that instead of a $1.5 million planned loss, it was a $420,000 actual loss. So,
Correct.
thank you.
And you can attribute that to, your staff, the the people in the business office. Debbie, Sue, Jack, they. They're here too, why don't we introduce them? Okay. You can stand up.
Debbie Pagano is our treasurer.
And actually, they're going to take a major
Sue
role.
Smith manages our budget like the back of her hand.
Right.
Wonderful people, thank you.
Yep. They did an excellent job, and going forward, they're going to take on more responsibility than they had prior. Okay, one more page. That's what we can go past that. Go a little past that one. Okay, that's the end. We'd like to thank the board, go ahead.
I do have a question, because the board, and you and I discussed this, so it's not a surprise to you.
Okay.
We did appoint a purchasing agent earlier this year when we made a change with the personnel change, when Mr. Withrow left.
Right.
And you and I had talked about whether we can have a deputy purchasing agent, but agreed on different terminology there, that we can have a backup purchasing agent in the physical absence, or if the appointed purchasing agent cannot perform that function. For example, the purchasing agent is away on vacation. We talked about creating a board resolution that would authorize me to temporarily authorize someone to be the purchasing agent in the absence of the appointed
Correct.
purchasing agent, so we don't have to stop operations. We can
Because
still
by law, you
buy
can't have a
things.
second one, because I explained.
Right.
The superintendent, if you have two of them, okay, and I was the teacher and I wanted something, I go to the first one, no, you can't have it. Well, I'll go to the second one.
Right.
Second one says, yes, you can have it.
Right, and
That's why you only have one.
right, yeah, that's not the situation we'd be in. So I would anticipate in the coming weeks that we would have further discussion about that.
Yeah,
in
you
a
have to have
resolution.
somebody so that if one person's out, the place still runs.
So the net of it is we can do that. You can, if, with the resolution.
Yeah, because that person is not going to have any, the only time it's going to happen is when the superintendent, based on your resolution, does it. So
Right.
it's not going to have two people at all times.
I have a question. So if, let's say the purchase agent says, okay, well, we can't do this, but can he override that and say, yes, we're going to do it because we've given him the power?
He can't.
That's where my little comment.
Right, we have to
No,
understand roles.
Purchasing
So-
agent has total authority. Nobody can override the purchasing agent.
Right.
Put it that way. They can discuss it, but you gave that authority to the purchasing agent to purchase for you. It can't be a dual, nobody can override it. They can be questioned, and then it can be held before the purchase order goes out. If somebody doesn't like it, then it can be stopped. But once the purchasing agent signs it,
And I think there's a clarification. The purchasing agent is just, not just, but that role is checking to make sure we're getting the correct price, we've got the right bids, we've looked at everything within the legal realms.
Right.
It's not a matter of, can we buy this? It's a matter of, have we bought this legally? Because the direction still comes from what the board sets as a budget.
Correct.
And the superintendent directs his staff to do,
Right.
correct? So it's not a matter of what they buy, it's Are we following all the laws? Are we have, certain levels you've got to have written bids, certain you only need, you get verbal quote, this is all different based on New York State
I have
law.
some questions about that later on, which
Okay.
actually was part of this, and I'm kind of curious about this. All right, so we have the purchase.
Anybody else have any questions
I
for Ray?
had one question. I just was curious with the forecasting that you do. Some places do it by hand, or do you use a program, a forecasting program like Forecast 5?
Okay, I don't. It's done by the school. I can't. As your auditor, I can assist and advise, but I can't, so it's going to be done through your business office and your superintendent's office here.
We have not used Forecast 5 traditionally. It is a piece of software that we are going to begin looking at,
It'll be good-
but it was an internal manual calculation in the past, so that's a piece of software we'll do some exploring on.
And I recommend that. It'll make job life real easy to use that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to finish off, one thing that already been done, and it was done this summer, is you improve the controls over the whole tax process. Is that now 3 people look at the whole process to make sure when it gets to the end, it's the same number. If they don't agree, you start from the beginning again and go through to find out who has what that way. So you won't have these mistakes that been happening.
Any other questions for Ray? Susan?
I'm looking at the page where you were discussing the real property taxes, the deficit of the 1.2 million, I believe, that we did not collect. When we're planning moving forward, is there some type of measurement that we can put into place that really factors this into our planning?
Yeah, Ray just briefly touched on it, but let me spend a little more time on it.
Can you make that up? No. Is
No.
that-
No, she's talking
No,
about
I'm not asking to make it up.
preventing in the future.
We have,
Taking that factor into
Oh,
the
yeah,
future
that-
and
okay.
creating some type of a measure to
Okay.
factor that in.
Right.
can I tell
Once-
you the process that we
Once
go
the budget is approved and you get to August, okay, the business office would come to you with a tax warrant. Before they come to you, everything that has to happen is going to be looked at by 3 or 4 people, not just one. So it does, in effect, does it. Then the other thing is, before that happens, the actual tax collector will get a tax roll, and she has to make sure her roll matches with what the other 3 people came up with. If anything happens within that, everything stops. So
So-
it will get, you won't see what happened this past 3 years.
So Sue, what we did this summer to prepare the warrant that this board approved was exactly what Ray just described, plus one step. We gathered the team, which includes the folks here. Rose will be implanted into that next year, and also our tax collector. Ray came in and did a full training with the group so that everybody knew the process on how to calculate tax rates, so that our tax bills would come out right. They then independently calculated the taxes, came together, compared answers, and collectively agreed on what the warrant should be. Then the final check and balance was our tax collector verifying all the rolls prior to us putting it on this agenda, and she and I reviewed it together to make sure that it was 100% accurate. So there's a series of checks and balances that are in place now that were not in place. So that will be the process going forward.
Hey,
It was the process this year.
I have one quick question. I'm looking at the report for the extracurricular activities,
Correct.
and noticing that the disbursements on some of these are quite high, with the whole, the money going in, the money going out on some of the individual clubs or classes is quite high, 6 figures in some cases. So what's our level, I don't know if this is to you, Ray, or us, but what's our level of controls to make sure all that's accounted for in the proper way and the right?
That gets audited. We audit that also. You
So
have
so-
a
and-
central- You have a central treasurer that maintains the books, and each club and class has a treasurer that also works with the central treasurer. You work the same way. You have, like a purchase order, when somebody buys it, it goes through a cycle where
Okay.
people have to sign off on it to the central treasurer. She won't sign off if she sees something doesn't look right. The size of the money depends on what they're raising the money for and what they're.
Right,
I can speak to that quickly, and I think Sue and Deb can back me up if needed. The largest one that you see there is the class of 2019 for $105,000 or $107,000. It's all about one big event in the spring, correct?
Yeah, that's what I figured, the senior class trip, but,
The prom and, or banquet, whatever you want to call it.
So that's what I
It's
wanted.
an expensive adventure, so.
so my question was really, in your audit, you are looking at that oversight and control
Right,
process, and that's what's in this
We
report.
have what we call zero tolerance when it comes to a management letter. If we see something, you'll see the back page as to what we see. But, you know,
I was
we
just trying to
don't
understand the
have a
scope of how-
materialized level for it. Where on your main report, there's what they call materialized level. We don't have that when it comes to extra classroom because it deals with the kids and their monies. So if we see something, this is the only way those students can understand what goes on in their club or
Yeah,
class.
and one of the big things with that, because we've had several problems over the years, not with expenses, more with income issues, where income sat around for a long period of time, and they've really done an amazing job fixing that. Because
Yes.
I know I paid for my ad, because I'm the biggest one. It annoys me only because I can't balance my checkbook, because I haven't cashed the damn check. But I noticed this year, the yearbook, not the yearbook, the fall play cashed within a week, actually cashed the check for the ad in the yearbook, in
Right.
their program.
Here again,
So
to answer
there-
your question, there's a
Come
72-hour
on.
timeline that things gotta be cashed unless it's over a weekend. Then it's gotta be 72 hours from the point of time they collect the money till it hits the bank.
And there's a lot of back and forth dialogue with the club advisors that collect funds and our staff that manages getting that money into the bank. So tightening up that procedure to make sure when the child hands in a check or cash or whatever, that gets logged and then deposited quickly.
Well, and it's a combination of staff and students, because all of those organizations have officers that
Correct.
are involved also.
And a faculty advisor. So there's a group, you know,
Right. Okay, any other questions for Ray?
I was just going to get back to the school lunch program quickly. Wasn't there a year, I don't know, like 4 years ago, that it actually was self-sustaining, or maybe it was 5 years ago? I mean,
That was before, there was a change, we weren't carrying salaries and pension
yeah.
in the right, it
Right.
was in the general, not in the school lunch. There was a
Before-
change, wasn't
yeah,
there, Ray?
Correct. Before then, the benefits were always covered by the general fund, which they are anyway. Now, with this money's being moved, what happened, the state wanted to see how actually school program, lunch programs were actually running. So they had school districts, or an auditor say, okay, the school districts now got to move the health insurance, the employee retirement, workers' comp, all the ones that are being paid out of the general fund now had to be associated with the school lunch program, and to supplant that, you can move that money that would have been paid out of here over there to cover. So that's where you get that money.
We're just moving the cards around.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, it's just showing where it is different than when it was.
Right, because they wanted to see
Yeah.
what school
Yeah.
districts were being self-supported and which one needed help, that's all.
And we will get to details on this at Fred's
Fred, yeah.
presentation in 2 weeks, so.
Anybody else? Thank you, Ray.
You're welcome.
We're going to move to the essential elements presentations by Ms. Clinton and Ms. Hecht.
Thank you, Mr. Milazzo. Is this on? Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, this evening, Principal Clinton and this crew from the middle school will be presenting on the New York State's Essential Elements School to Watch program. I'm just going to tell you right now that there are two main purposes for the program. First, to promote continuous school improvement through collaborative measures. And then the second is to identify and recognize middle-level schools and programs that are academically excellent, developmentally appropriate, socially equitable, and organized to ensure continuous research-based school improvement. I know you have received some literature, and some of you did attend the program at the Power Up Night. So some of this will be new, some will not. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Clinton and Mr. Stanmeyer and the staff that are actually been very involved over the last couple of years doing the work. They'll share with you about the process, the details, where they are right now, and where they're going to continue to go. Okay. How do I, am I using this? Can I say it? This one? Okay. Got it. It's good. Okay.
Good evening, thank you. In order to keep this abbreviated, I'm going to refer to my notes because this process we could spend all night talking about it, but I'm confident that you'd rather we do it with a little more brevity. So some of you may realize twice a year I attend a conference, the Middle Level Liaisons Conference in Albany. I represent both Marlborough and Orange County OU BOCES. And while I've been attending these meetings, they've been talking about the Essential Elements Schools to Watch program, which really piqued my interest because as the schools would present on some of the programs that they have in place, I would sit there and go, we do something like that. We do something like that. And I kept saying it over and over, and really it accolades to the faculty and staff that we have at the middle school. So I came back and I shared with the team these ideas, and I said, what do you think? Should we go ahead and start this process? So for the past 2 years, we've been really focused on the process of determining whether or not we meet the criteria to be an Essential Elements Schools to Watch school. So as Ms. Heck said, it is a school program that looks at both the national and state level to address standards of excellence and middle level education. So recognizing really those years between elementary and high school that are very unique to a student's life. So through a team of teachers and administration, we've come together and we meet regularly and we review all of our programs in our building, academic, social, and emotional programs. It is an opportunity for us to recognize the truly exceptional faculty and staff that we have at the middle school and the amazing programs that they do. Some of you saw our Power Up Night on Monday night. That's just one example of many of the things that really is put on by the team here. So the other positive about this program is that it's data and evidence driven. So we had to evaluate ourselves on 37 domains and really identify evidence. And through that process, there were some areas that we needed to grow in. And after, we also completed an online survey where all faculty and staff had an opportunity to rate ourselves on how well they feel that we do. We did that the first year. We identified some areas that we wanted to really focus in on, and then after reviewing that and working diligently, we decided this year to redo the survey and to submit a 102-page application in July. So that application, we are happy to say, was received and recognized, and a little foreshadowing to what's going to come, they granted us a site visit. So before we go there, we're going to just quickly go through the different domains and talk very briefly about them.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Brooks, the board. A little change of pace here, my voice. So academic excellence is one of the 4 domains that the committee looks at and wants to see high quality performance, high quality teaching. All students are expected to meet high standards. One way we do that, we look every year, we analyze state test scores, STAR testing, things like the homework task force that Mrs. Clinton began a few years ago to really look in and delve deep into our academic program and ensure top-notch teaching. And again, we couldn't be more proud of our staff, 3 teachers here tonight and a few others that could not be here that wanted to be here. Again, anyone in the audience that's been to events like the mock trial, we really try to engage our students on hands-on learning, really experience-based learning in multiple different ways. Curriculum is aligned to next gen and also common core standards. Our class size, we pay special attention and try to keep those that class size low as possible. And we utilize technology, No Red Ink, Alex, Raz Kids, and also with the Chromebook initiative, we really try to streamline our curriculum. And again, the committee will come in and tell us things that we could do better. So that's the first domain.
The next domain is developmental responsiveness, and this again really addresses the uniqueness of the developmental characteristics of middle-level children. So just a couple of quick things. We really focus on the student voice. We just recently completed yet another survey asking students, who do you feel you connect with at the middle school versus who do we feel that we do a good job of connecting with? Creating a sense of belonging and definitely making sure that we are providing a variety of offerings and opportunities, even opportunities that are brought to us by our community to give students a chance to really find success. And we have a new mural that we plan on going up soon that talks about celebrating differences in the school. So it goes back to what Joanne was saying earlier. We also this year have embarked, thank you to Ms. Hecht, on all teachers, all faculty and staff reading the book, The Teenage Brain. So this really goes along with this concept of being developmentally responsive, because the more we know and understand about the teenage brain's development, the more we can address the needs of teenagers that we address every single day.
Social equity is the third domain, and it does kind of dovetail from the previous domain. There are a lot of similarities. I love the picture here. The difference between equality and equity. Equality is everyone gets the exact same thing, where equity is meeting the student or the person where they're at. So the picture really illustrates that concept. So it's providing certain students that may come to us, maybe they didn't receive the best, pre-K support at home. And it's our job from the elementary level and up to kind of meet those students where they're at through, different initiatives, the RTI process, special ed services, things that we do in the building, such as the mentoring program, the backpack program, our blessing box we have in the guidance office, holiday support programs, Power Up Night, Diversity Night, Project Lit, SEL Leadership Committee, and the assemblies that we bring in to really address social emotional concerns. And again, meeting students at the spot they're at. Some kids, come to us and have, nary a social conflict, where some students, they really struggle with that. So it's, again, meeting those students, getting them the proper support, the proper counseling, the proper class programs. We focus on differentiation in the classrooms, SWAT breakfast, and I could go on, but I won't. But that's what social equity is. And again, there's things I'm sure we can learn and do better at, but we feel like we do really good at this point providing social equity. So thank you.
The fourth and final domain is the organizational structures and processes that are in place. And just because this one's kind of sometimes a little bit harder to quantify, it addresses the idea of trajectory towards excellence. So when we develop professional development, that we're meeting the needs of the teachers and where they are to address the needs that they have of the students in their classrooms, that we are in collaboration with the elementary school for the transition from 5th to 6th grade, that we're in collaboration with the high school with the transition from 8th grade to 9th grade, and also that we collaborate and communicate with the local colleges and we utilize those services. For instance, we have our merit students who come once a week. So all of these things really fall into, are we on that trajectory towards excellence? So that is the fourth and final domain. Again, 37 elements underneath those domains that we found evidence for. We found some areas to grow and improve. And really the most important thing that I think you keep hearing us say is that this process is about continuous improvement. So the Essential Elements Schools to Watch is designed to help schools develop an ongoing culture of self-reflection leading to continuous self-improvement. This is not an end-of-the-road type situation. This is a recognition of the programs and the work that we do every single day, and it is also focused on how do we continue to grow and get better so we continue to meet the changes and the needs of students. As someone who's been in education for over 2 decades, I can tell you that, as many of you also know in this room, that children have changed and the things that they face have changed, and we need to continue to grow and make sure that we're addressing them where they are now. So what are our next steps? Basically, as I mentioned, we're excited to, once we submitted our application in July, we're like, okay, well, let's see what happens. We didn't hear anything in September, and then we got the phone call, and we were really excited, and we all kind of jumped up and down a bit. And we celebrated the fact that they recognize that the programs that we have in the application are worth them coming and doing a 2-day site visit. So a trained group of evaluators, 4 people, will be coming down to visit our programs. They'll be spending the full day with us on November 21st, Thursday, and a half day on November 22nd. The lead evaluator is actually a principal from a school in central New York, and his school has been designated 3 times. It is his first time actually being the lead evaluator, but he's been on the team, and our ultimate goal is to hear what they have to say. They're going to look at our programs. They're going to, again, I think, celebrate some of our accomplishments and the things that we do, and they're going to give us some tangible suggestions and ideas and some things to reflect upon. 3 things could happen. They can say, you're doing great, keep up the work, and reapply. You're doing great. Here are some targeted areas for improvement. You're what we deem a rising star. Or you're doing great, and we think you're ready, and you are going to be designated as an essential element schools to watch. So whatever the feedback is, wherever we are in the process, we're going to keep on moving forward, and we're going to, work with whatever feedback that they give us, because we do feel that this establishes for us a criteria, a high standard of excellence in all areas. So we thought it was a great program for us. So here's my shameless plug. Board members, they'd like to meet with you, if you can, squeeze it into your schedule, on November 21st. I recognize it is a board meeting day. I asked how late they're willing to meet, because this is obviously our first go-around, and they say that they usually like to be done by 4 o'clock or so, because they go back and they have lots of paperwork that they do. So we can squeeze you in as late as possible, because I would imagine that's easier. Or if you're able to attend, we can fit you in wherever works in your schedule. I think they'd like to see a couple of you if possible, but I recognize that work and schedules can be tricky, so we'll coordinate. Mr. Brooks told me it was okay for me to ask for volunteers, so I'm not surprising him here. Also, any parents in the audience? I already made some efforts to reach out to some. They'd also like to meet with parents, and that is scheduled at 4 o'clock specifically on the 21st. So just to give you a quick overview, they'll be meeting with the high school principal, the elementary school principal, board members, parents, students, central administration, and they'll be attending as many classrooms as possible while they're there to really get a full flavor of what we do in Marlborough and specifically in the middle school. That's what I have to say. The team is prepared to take any questions.
If I could put a plug in before we open up the questions too. One of the things we hear most often about helping our children move through K through 12 is having that sense of perseverance, that strength of wind behind your back to keep pushing forward. And I want to commend not only the group here, certainly here, for representing the larger group that helped put this all together, but perseverance means everything to get to the point where you were even able to submit the document. So kudos to you. Thank you very much. I know it's a lot of time, energy, and effort, and I personally want to make sure that you hear those words from me. And on behalf of the district and the Board of Education, well done. To get to this level is fantastic. But more importantly, to have the mindset that you're saying, we're not done. It's not, I think I actually said it today, it's not about perfection. You never sacrifice good in your pursuit of that perfection, though. Always look for it, but don't sacrifice good. You guys did some great stuff to get to this point, so I'm proud of you. Well done.
Thank you. I also just want to say that if we are fortunate enough to be designated this go-around, you have to continually work on improving, because you get redesignated, and you have to go through a redesignation process every 3 years. This is not a, here's your gold star, you've met the criteria. You have to keep moving in that direction. So that was another thing that we were really appealed us to this program. So,
Questions from the board? I'm sure that some of us will find time that day to be there. Just a quick question I had is, are there any other districts in the county yet? Good. We can be the first. And while we're talking about the middle school, for those that may not know, Miss Who, or actually,
Corbett.
Miss Corbett is taking the chorus to perform at Radio City before the Christmas show starts on the afternoon show on December 16th. So if you want to buy tickets for the December 16th show, get there, and before the show actually starts, our students will be singing to the audience.
Nice.
Anybody else? Thank you very, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say congratulations, and if you need a board member, I'm happy to. You have a wonderful team, and this is just a phenomenal opportunity for both them and the students. So if I can help in any way, I will.
Thank you.
And I was going to ask that, does it have to be at 4 o'clock? Can it be during the day?
No, it can be during the day. I will adjust the schedule and move things around during that day, except for at 9 a.m. That's when the superintendent meets with them. I'm not.
I'm thinking more like 11, anywhere between 11.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Why don't we coordinate it through Teresa? She can send an email out to
Great.
the full board, include Deborah in the email, so we can figure out who's available and when. Okay? Does that work?
Thank you very much.
Just because I just want to acknowledge that this really is about a team process, and the teachers are really important. So just one last final comment.
Good evening, Mr. Brooks and the board and everybody, and thank you for letting us be here. On behalf of the committee, and there are many of us, unfortunately, just the three of us. This is Heather and Megan, and I'm Cassia. Being a part of the Essential Element Committee has allowed us the opportunity to reflect, grow, and inspire positive change in our school. We are committed to continuous growth and improvement, and we hope to become a school to watch, and we thank all of you for your support and guidance, and especially we thank Damien and Deborah, because without them, we wouldn't be here tonight.
Well done. Could you more formally introduce each of your, each yourselves? What your name, obviously, and what you teach, so if you could.
I'm Cassia Messina, and this is my 13th year in the district. I teach ELA and science, and it is a privilege to be here and be working for you. Thanks.
I am Heather Nicola. This is my 8th year here. I am a special education teacher focusing on ELA for grades 7 and 8.
Hi, my name is Megan Calamus. This is my 3rd year here, and I'm split between the middle school and the high school teaching AIS ELA.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Clinton, if I could also, I believe one of the very involved people that probably would have been here tonight, but is in the right place tonight. You want to?
So we have quite a few, but I'll recognize that one is Kate Plover, who did the presentation the other night that some of you saw. It's her daughter's birthday, so she's home celebrating. And another person who also has a milestone is Hayden Carlin, who really wrote many of the narratives for us, and he is a brand new dad. So they had really good reasons not to be here tonight.
Yes. That's great. Great, thank you. Okay, we're going to get back onto the agenda. We're going to move to public comment on agenda items. Anybody in the public has any comment on the agenda items, please come to the podium, state your name, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
I just wanted to mention that I had attended 2 events in the district. The one was
No, that would be for the after. This is just public comment on agenda
sorry.
items. Public comment on the agenda items. Okay, so we'll move to consent agenda. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves the contracts, agreements, and reports as presented. Personnel actions, CSE, CPSE reports, Discovery Education contract, Board of Ed meeting minutes for 10-3 and 10-17, donations, petroleum, traders, renewal, claims audit report, textbook adoption, budget status report. Can I have a motion?
I motion.
And a second, Joanne? Any discussion?
I just have a question on the budget status report. I've noticed in the administration that I believe it's $76,839.18. Is that what we spent since July? Is that just for the administration office?
You talking about the comparison year-to-date one?
Yeah.
The last report?
Yes. And number 12, central administration, is that just for the business office?
No, central administration isn't the business office.
I'm trying to find out where you are, so. Item K?
It would be line 2 underneath general.
Item K, and then she's in it.
Okay.
Is that what we spent?
So, yeah, this report reflects for September, year-to-date.
Okay,
So,
so from that's July till now, and that's just for the business office?
No, central,
Well, that's what I'm asking.
which,
It's a comparison.
I can't open mine, I don't have the.
yeah, I don't know which
Okay.
one.
If you're talking about under which number, Joanne?
It's number 12. It's
Nope.
under number 1, the second.
Central administration is, that's a designated budget code by the state. That's your superintendent, all your central administrators, all your central office functions, it's everything. So the key, this is the report that we as a group had discussed. We really wanted to see, we get lots of numbers and information, and it's awful hard to really know what any of it means. So this was the one where we asked, we wanted to see where we are at the end of each month, compared year-to-date, compared to what we're budgeted, so we know how much of our budget we've spent or taken in, and, well, this is just the expenditures. And then compare that to the same time last year for last year's budget. And the important things to be looking at, because obviously the total budget number can change, is really looking at the percentage. Where we're at in that percentage column compared to the previous year, and realizing that things are going to move depending on whether a bill comes in, it may be.
And it was really even great to see like the assistant principal middle school and the principal of the high school participating in it. Fun event, wonderful, wonderful idea, and just great. The other thing that I attended was the Power Up Night at the middle school, and that, I have to say, was a wonderful event too. I'm still getting texts from parents about how much fun they had at that event. So these are like great things that our district does that are give back, and it's just really great to be part of it. And I just want to applaud the efforts of the staff that took part in those events.
Great. James?
That's something, I believe it was last meeting. Sorry if I'm wrong, it may have been one before. We had a gentleman that his kindergartner was hurt on the bus. Had some questions about the cameras on him. Did we get to the bottom of that?
Yes, you want to speak to it, Rose, or?
Earlier in the week, we met with the bus company to address some of our concerns that we've had with some bus runs. And one of our concerns was just that, the cameras. And we've had found out that it wasn't just that one instance where the camera didn't work. We were assured that they were putting in a process for routinely checking the cameras to make sure that on a routine maintenance basis, like they do with the other maintenance items on the buses, that they would be checking the cameras to make sure that they were in working order.
Okay, great.
In addition, some other issues that we addressed that hopefully they're going to satisfy them to our satisfaction.
And we're scheduling a follow-up meeting within the next month or so to see the progress and assurances that we're getting to the things that we expect to get to.
Cool, thank you.
Anybody else, any old business?
I was just wondering too how we're doing with getting the PT issues. We had a gentleman also that spoke about the PT services, and I was wondering how that's going.
Our PT is on site. She started last week, and she completed her schedule, and she's already started sessions and will complete all the makeups as guaranteed in the letter that was sent to the parents.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other old items? Any other new business?
I have a couple of questions. One is, will we be doing Special Olympics this year? And are we asking the staff who would volunteer and who would go and who would do the training for that? So that's one of my questions.
I'll find out.
It starts. What?
Yes. Yes.
All right. There's I guess, a rumor going around. I'd I'm hearing that one-on-one aides have been told that they now have to help all special ed students in that classroom, and that they're not going to specials with their student. So I kind of like to nip that in the bud before it goes out there. Because a one-to-one aide is for that particular student.
Yeah,
not any other student.
I don't know what the specific reference is, but we assign our staff, whether they're teachers or teaching assistants, to meet the IEP requirements,
Right,
period.
if they're one-on-one, they're just one-to-one with that student.
Whatever the
not
requirement is of the IEP is what we
Correct.
meet.
So I'm just saying this because there's a rumor saying that the one-to-ones are supposed to help other students and that it's not. And
If
that
we
they're not
can
going to
use,
specials.
if we can use teachers' assistants in multiple ways, we certainly do, but whatever the IEP says for that child is what we expect is what we expect to be met.
And I would say specifically, if there's a specific case where we know what that is, that person or you, if you have the factual information, should make sure the superintendent knows about it immediately.
My other thing is, Mike, can you walk me through the way, when we're talking about purchasing? We have a purchasing agent. So if I say, ooh, I like that chair's $500. Ooh, let's put in for it. Who says no when there's a limit on things? Or I want a brand new desk, and that desk is $5,000. Who then stops and says, stop, we don't purchase this. You have a certain amount for chairs, a certain amount for desks, and like even corporations have a certain amount of money that you're allowed to spend on certain things. So I guess, being at convention, I have seen some things, and so I'm kind of like curious, who says yes, who orders it, and how do we get it under control or not?
Sure, so anytime a requisition is put into the system, it does go through a series of layers of administrative approval. So you have to have money in your account in order to make a purchase, so there's certainly a big piece to it, but depending upon the department or the building, the administrator in charge of that department or building has to approve that. It then moves on to central level, and again, depending upon the department at the central level, there's an administrative approval there. Once it receives all the final administrative approvals, meaning it's been vetted that that thing, that chair, we need to buy that chair, the purchasing agent then takes over the process to assure that the proper process was followed to purchase that chair, and then actually makes the purchase.
So we don't have a limit on certain objects. So in other words,
Absolutely.
like I said, so if we wanted to buy a chair, and the chair, our normal standard chairs will say are $80. Ooh, but there's something that's a little different, that's $250. So we're gonna buy the $250 chair.
Correct,
Is
I
there
think we should buy the
something-
$250 chair, or it's buying the $125.
Well,
And I'm not being
I'm just
flippant
trying to
about that,
find out.
because
Do we-
that approach is how we get to the point where instead of having an anticipated shortfall of $1.5 million, it's $420,000. Because it's not a platitude when I say it every year. We rub the buffalo off every nickel before we spend it. That's what we do. So those are the roles and responsibilities of the administrators in the approval queue. Certainly, as they approach the budgeting process and look at how they create their budget for our review, they go through their own vetting of that during that development process. But once the budget's in place and we start purchasing on July 1st, there's some discretionary money in the budget that a department or a building has to use for, this rug is torn. We need to replace that rug. We didn't anticipate it, but we have money in the budget, so buy it. Or there's some things that are just programmed. We're going to replace furniture in 5 classrooms, and again, I'm making this up, and that's already preset so that we order that stuff, or computers, or whatever.
And this is like-
So
I
it's
just wanted to know-
administratively controlled.
Because I just want to see it, and do we also go back to for certain desks, like teachers or administration's desks, we used to buy the used furniture from the guy in Newburgh and the guy in Marlboro. Do we still do that?
When we can, absolutely. It's,
Do we
yeah.
buy a lot of furniture?
We don't buy a lot of furniture.
No, I
We
didn't
do
think
some
so.
classroom replacements when we can. Certainly, part of the capital project, there will be a
A lot of furniture.
significant amount of furniture purchased for renovations. So, listen, these folks want to use the dollars in their budget very, very well because they know that the budget's finite. So it behooves them to do the best bargain shopping that they can. So.
And also, I know you just said capital project. A lot of that capital project, a lot of the furnishings are not included in that capital project, correct? And a lot of the gym equipment is not in that project because when he was doing the demonstration, when Tom was doing the talking about it, that was one of the things that he did say, is the furniture's not covered. So I wanted to know, since we have our reserve fund, maybe the excess money, maybe we should start putting money into that to get chairs, desks, treadmills, or whatever, weights, or whatever we need. We should be putting extra money aside for that now. So if we have extra money at the end of the year, we have $500,000 that should go into reserve, not the wish list.
Valid
of the
point.
teachers.
Valid point.
Okay. My other thing is when I was up in Rochester, there's a couple of nice things. One is doing a new building, doing our new capital project. I came across locks for the doors, which a lot of the school districts are now going to, because the police can get in faster, they don't need keys, they don't need, they're a combination, or I believe they're touch like a fingerprint door, very secure, very much, and some of the school districts are starting to put them on classroom doors. But on the outer doors, I thought that was actually kind of smarter than us trying to use keys. If there is a lockdown or we have to get in, the police department will have the key to come in, 1, 2, 3, and get there. So I was,
Law enforcement doesn't use keys. We provide swipe cards for law enforcement. So that's all coordinated through Mr. Bacazzi's office. But I'd love to see the documentation.
yeah, I'm trying to
So
find
when you can, I don't have to get this second, but when,
And the other one was, because I know our students build robots and stuff, and there was a bunch of kids from different school districts up there, and one of them, they build robots, and they actually go into competition. They actually, they were building one, and it was pretty cool. Their biggest competitor is Canada. They actually compete with kids from Canada. And I was wondering with our kids is, maybe we can get some of our students into, I mean, their robots were pretty cool. They're, doing different things, picking up things. So I brought some information on that.
Well, one of you mentioned it, one of the part of capital project is dealing with our labs, and hopefully, when we get to that point, we'll see how the numbers all flush out. Hopefully, we can improve on what we have the ability to be able to do for the students.
Just so you know, in the high school, there's the engineering program. They do have robots. They have the next generation Lego Mindstorm robots. I don't know if you've taken a tour, even doing in the elementary school now. Each of the maker spaces has age-appropriate robots. The one in MES, I happened to walk in there the other day because it was open while I was waiting for my son, and it's unbelievable what they have in there now. Building kits, Lego kits, Robobots, the ones that look like the Star Wars guy. But it's a pretty good collection now.
I mean, we have a presentation from the principals and Ms. Hecht, the 19th of December. I will ask on behalf of the board if we could incorporate into that presentation some of our STEM trajectory in the elementary, middle, and high school, because it's quite impressive. And the facility structure that we're putting together really is going to take it to the next level. So.
The kids were amazing. I have to tell you, doing these from all ages. It was really nice. The other thing is next year when they do conference, I have to tell you, we have the most talented kids as far as I'm concerned in New York State. And I never see our artwork up at the school board conventions. All the years I've been going, I don't see it. But I do have to say is all the school districts at the end of the business meeting was featured, and Margot was there, and the picture I took, which is one of the ones that I always love, is our seniors walking down with their caps and gowns to our elementary. And that was the one that was featured in New York State School Board. So that I thought was very classy on whoever picked the photo. But I'd like to see our artwork at convention to show off our kids.
Well, and the thing we got to remember is the convention was showing off to other schools. There's a cost involved, and that's the thing we always have to look at. It's great, and the really thing to show off is we show off right here at Frida's, here in the building. all these productions that go on, whether it's at the school, we gotta look at what the cost is too. That's,
So I mean, the students were not there.
where is
at
next
the
year?
thing.
Well, but it's gotta get there.
It's down in New York City next year. But, I mean, I don't think it takes a lot to mail our artwork up to New York State school boards to put it up. I would like to show our kids.
Well, so Joanne, as you're the one that usually goes, why don't you research the process? Because it's not the schools that are doing stuff, it's the school boards, it's theirs. Why don't you research the process of doing stuff, what actually, deal with New York State school boards and find out what that process is to do that, to go through it. What's the whole process?
Because like I said, I would like to see our kids featured, just like other kids, because you're walking down the hallway, you see your
Okay,
school districts.
we understand. So just try and do the research, and we'll go from there. Any other new business? Any other items? So before we move on to recognition of district residents, I just want to remind everybody about the play again. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday and Saturday it's night, Sunday it's during the midday. And also, if you're not going to the play tomorrow night, you may want to drive to Middletown, because Port Jervis and Marlboro are playing for the Section 9 championship at 7 p.m. tomorrow night in Middletown in football.
And it will be cold, so bring
It'll be very cold, just warm. I'll be the one all wrapped up and stuff.
The play tickets, are they available online, or do you have to buy them in person?
For which?
The play.
You can get them online, but you can just get them at the door. It's much easier.
She's not even in costume.
Yeah, you can't stream the play.
No.
No, football's not. It's not in our facility.
Play or?
It's in Middletown. No, and unfortunately, when you get the playoffs, it's all about the dollars. They're just looking to get the dollars. Okay, recognition of district residents. What?
the stadium to 11.
It's the Middletown High School, yep. Recognition of district residents. Any residents can please come to the podium, give your name, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Judy Moore. I'm here as a concerned resident and also an advocate for kids with special needs or regular kids. I just want to bring the board's attention to, which I know you know part of this, and I won't talk about specifics, but I wrote a letter, tomorrow will be a week ago, to the board and letting everybody know about some concerns that were going on with a particular student, and then wrote another letter the next day after, I think, hopefully a successful meeting today, listening to Ms. Reed talk about inclusion of, all kids in different groups and feeling like they should be accepted for who they are. I'm really concerned that, and this is something that's been going on for many years, that parents in general do not want to speak out about certain educators that may be doing something they feel is not correct with their child. And to be able to advocate for your child is something, it's your job to do. It's what you should be doing. To get retaliation for speaking out and trying to advocate for the child is something that's disturbing. So I had one parent, and I wanted to let the public know, I had one parent that spoke to you, Mr. Brooks, and mentioned that they were afraid of speaking out because they're afraid that CPS would be called on them. Next day, CPS was called on them. Coincidence? Maybe. A day or so ago, some reports were put in and some questions were asked. CPS was called a second time. It's unfounded. It's disturbing. It shouldn't be allowed. It's not even my child, and I'm disgusted. I'm upset, and this is not right. So I hope that the board does everything in its power to take care of this situation, because I believe you have a duty to do so. And just as human beings, this is a child we are talking about. This is a little child. And if this was anybody's kid in this audience, and you go and you speak to somebody to get help for the said child, and you're met by retaliation, you'd kind of be like, are you kidding me? It makes no sense and there are no words, and I know you can't respond, but I just had to get it out there. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, I have a motion to adjourn. We have no executive session tonight. Karen, second. James, all in favor? Aye. Anybody who's opposed can stay. Good night. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks.